this roundtable about research in the future. And before introducing my colleagues, I'd like to define a general approach for this roundtable with the different topics we could discuss. It's completely open, it's a suggestion. For instance, should be interesting, from my point of view, to identify main areas of interest related with research and facility management, but in both ways, interesting for researchers and also interesting for the market, for professionals, for industry, because we all are aware there are a gap among researchers' interests and market necessities, and I suppose we all agree that it should be interesting to reduce this gap and strengthen the relationship. So this could be a topic to be discussed. Another interesting topic could be identify existing barriers to get funding for research. Research is not for free, requires funding, and H2020 programs is difficult to get funding. In fact, I'm frustrated with the H2020 program. And another topic that could be interesting is how we could take advantage from the synergies that EUREFM can give us, and how we could improve the relationship into the EUREFM association in order to take advantage from these synergies. So we could discuss on these topics or any others. I encourage to all the participants to ask questions, to give us opinions, your thoughts through the CIFMERS app. And to begin, I'd like to draw a general approach about the different topics related with research in facility management, and looking for a general approach, a general umbrella. I think that probably the most useful topic should be the sustainable facility management approach through the triple bottom line approach with social, economic, environmental topics. Social topics as well-being and comfort improvement, healthier and safer environment, resilient cities, risk and disaster management, corporate social responsibility, economic topics as added value in facility management, assets optimization of total cost ownership, improvement of workplace productivity, risk and opportunity management, and related to environmental topics, building cost-effective operations, cost-effective retrofitting, lower site impacts, digitalization with BIM, integrated workplace management system, GIs, and the data exchange for smart cities, energy, water, rubbish management, sustainable mobility, BIM integration with life cycle cost, life cycle assessment. So there are many topics of research, many interest areas for research, and you are invited to give ideas, give opinions about what should be the main interest areas for research in the near future. So, Michaela is an architect from the University of Leuven, and now is researcher at the Institute of Facility Management, and she's specialized in digitalization and emerging technologies, as being Internet of Things, smart cities, so on. So, would you like to share your poster with us about integrating life cycle sustainability analysis with BIM? It's okay?
Yes, thank you for this.
Okay.
My research is about sustainability analysis tools such as life cycle costing and life cycle assessment, which are addressing the economic and the environmental aspects of sustainability, as you have mentioned. Both methods are very helpful for facility managers and also real estate professionals, architects, to help them make informed decisions about the buildings, but also the infrastructures in early design phase where it matters the most. And my research considers how the real benefits for society and urban smart development and facility management emerge when these life cycle tools are integrated with new technologies such as building information modeling. And I strongly believe that in this way it will be so much easier to compare different solutions in the design phase and to choose the one that has really the minimum life cycle costs and also the minimum environmental footprint. As you can see on the screens, I'm not go very detailed into the research laboratory. So the methodology was quite complex. So we did different phases of research to grasp different views of also the stakeholders. So expert interviews in number 9 were conducted, and afterwards the results were tested on a larger scales of around 80 participants. And at the end, because of the practical nature of the topic, we thought would be of great a benefit to test the results through a small case study and develop a model that, or at least the first steps in defining a model of this integration. The first round of analysis, so I switch now directly to the findings as time is quite short for this, and it has revealed roughly at the beginning the two main aspects in order for a successful integration of lifecycle sustainability tools and BIM. And first is collaboration. That is very important. The process of enabling these simulations with technologies, both environmental and economic, involving BIM is definitely not limited to one professional, not the facility manager, not the architect, not the sustainability consultants. But on the contrary, as the expert interviews have shown, it is the result of the collaboration between several professions. And you will see that in the graph, the first graph left in the middle of the poster. That really shows the complexity of these relationships. We have also been looking at the beginning at the awareness of both lifecycle costing, lifecycle assessment, and BIM, as without having a real knowledge and awareness of these new tools, it will be difficult to have a successful results. But the main findings were that roughly a couple of factors that play a role in the integration were revealed through semi-structured questions of interviewees, and we have identified 3 categories. There are important things to consider at the strategic level. For instance, what is the role of international standards and guidance? What about LC standards, IFC, so BIM standards, and also the importance of supporting decision-making, meeting the governmental sustainability requirements. Then, of course, there is a lot to consider about applications and processes. Since we talk about new technologies, then things need to be changed. And currently there are a lot of sustainability simulations conducted at the IBM, but a lot still needs to be improved with regard to material comparison, estimating the energy performance, and so forth. Last but not least, it's very important to consider the technical and the operational level. So basically, what is the workflow of getting from A to B? What are the softwares, the apps we need, and what new jobs, roles needs to be created. Afterwards, based on these findings, we have looked at the factors that play a role in integration, and I just want to mention the three most important of factors which enable the integration, and then the factors which are a challenge. So I'll start with the negative ones. There is a problem with databases of costs and environmental data, because these are not linked with the B models mainly. So, and the second is that there is many times limited accessibility to information. The last, that cannot easily be improved, there is currently a lack of technical skills and qualified professionals who can conduct this analysis. But luckily there are a lot of factors which can enable and push forward the integration, and I've just mentioned the most important: increased accuracy. Well, now precise building quantities can be extracted and analysis conducted, but also an increase of collaboration, transparencies, the possibility now to conduct cost estimating, calculate energy performance, and so forth. And we have at the end used some of these factors in conducting a small case study that was just showing a few important points from the practical point of view, which I will not further develop, about classification system and so forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michaela. It's very nice, and I am really passionate with this kind of research. In fact, we are beginning to research at UPM in how to get information in a cheaper way to model system buildings. Yes. Through microdrones and laser data capture. What do you think about the future in these topics? Because it's clear that modeling system buildings is not cost effective till now. Yes. It's too expensive. But if we have a cheaper way to get modeling of system buildings, should be great, I think. What do you think about this?
Yes, definitely there are new ways of capturing reality data, and I'm aware of some consumer versions of laser scanners which are accessible for price. Maybe the accuracy is a few millimeters lower than the high professional laser scanners, but still it produces, as I tested myself, a good data file with a lot of point clouds, which can be then easily combined with photogrammetry, so drone captured data. And there are even a start now in automated generated floor plans and not so complex 3D models from this data.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We'll come back later. Yes. to you. Our second colleague is Nut, PhD, professor, assistant professor, and coordinator of Oslo Met's Bachelor in Facility Management, and with a wide experience as researcher in many topics related to facility management, real estate, workplace design, digitalization, and so on. And if you are so kind to share your poster about advantages of facility management involvement in design construction process to improve later building operation, should be great. So, note please.
Thank you. Could you please change to the... Okay. This project was made together, or this paper was made together with Alenka Tamilotov-Salai at NTNU in Trondheim, and it's based on data from the Oscar research project. The background is that in Norway, commercial building and public buildings, they usually stay in service for about 60 years in average, but of course there are variations. You have, as we were told earlier today, you have office buildings that are demolished after 20 years because they are obsolete, or you have schools that are demolished and replaced after 30 years, and you have other buildings that serve for hundreds of years, but in average about 60 years. And then the strategic analysis and the early phase planning and the construction phase is basically short but quite important episodes in the life cycle of a building. And if you look at the total costs, the life cycle costs of what takes place in a building, for instance a hospital, then the operational costs of a hospital is so high that after 3 to 4 years you have actually spent the construction costs per square meter. So the construction cost means actually very little, for instance at the hospital. So at the Oscar project, we tried to, which was initiated and run by Multiconsult in Norway together with NTNU and Oslo Met and lots of partners from the industry. We tried to figure out the importance of these early phases and how to create buildings that, to establish buildings that create value for both owners and the users of the buildings. And in the first work package in Oscar, we looked at the early phase planning and design phase, and we ran a lot of literature studies, ran case studies, and we ran a national survey. And in that national survey, we found that the investment in the building was the most important, but even the owners, they were also concerned about the life cycle costs. But surprisingly, both the owners and the users were not especially concerned about the adaptability of a building, which is very important for a building's life cycle costs and for the use of the building, the ability to change its function and form and footprint. So that was quite surprising. And that is also a bit disturbing because most of the important decisions, they are actually made in the early phase before you start building, before you start the construction process. So then we try to dig deeper into this in the second work package, which was about the construction and production phase of buildings. So we made 2 research questions here. We thought about how does early involvement of FM competencies in the construction phase and early phase planning, how does it affect the outcome of the construction project? And similarly, how does the transfer of information, the red squares, where you have, if you can see the construction and planning process of a building as a kind of relay run, where you hand over the baton to the next team. How do this transfer of information influence the outcome of the project? So the method here applied is that we ran a national survey where we got 1,034 respondents. And to analyze these data, usually you apply to see if there are correlations here. You usually apply what is called Pearson's rule, where you correlate one-on-one question to see if there are any patterns. But in this case, we used what is called canonical correlation, which means that you have a list of questions as an independent variable and a list of questions as a dependent variable. And to combine this, you have the total effect of a lot of questions. And when you use correlation measures, you have what we call effect size. They come like t-shirt sizes. That you have a small effect size if you have an effect of a correlation of 0.10. And you have a medium strong effect size if you have 0.30. And you have a large effect size if you have 0.50 or more. And this canonical correlation is like running a multiple regression, but then you can also have multiple dependent variables, not only one dependent variable. So it's a quite useful method, but it's not that much use because it's a bit tricky in, for instance, SPSS. It's not on the menu. You have to use syntax to get access to that method. The respondents here, it was not a randomized study, but still it's quite representative. We got 80% male respondents, 20% females, which quite well reflect the Norwegian construction industry. About 640 respondents have been into construction of new buildings. The others have been in refurbishment and renovation of buildings. And they represented the whole spectrum from project managers, consulting engineers, architects, facility managers, and so forth. And the type of buildings they based their answers on was the whole scale, from housing, offices, to schools, prisons, hospitals, sports facilities, and so forth. What we found here is that there is strong correlation between early involvement of FM. And we saw that we had effect size there about 0.5, which is a strong one. And similarly, when we looked at the transfer information, it was even stronger. It was almost 0.6. So there is a significant effect. So what we have found here in this big data material, there are effects, but we have to follow up with new studies. Because now we have only shown there is correlation, but you can't say there is causality, but it can't be causality without correlation. But then we have to design studies so you can check out where and how do these possible causalities work. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Just a question, because in US, UK, and in other countries, it's mandatory in public projects to incorporate FM experts into the designing process and the architect's team. Do you think it's a key driver to improve building operation in the future?
I think that is. I think it's a very good idea to make it in Norway in big projects, about $500 million Norwegian kroner. Then you have to make net present value calculations to present for the Ministry of Finance to estimate the life cycle costs, and similarly to include operational people in the planning team. That's a very good idea, because then you can avoid solutions that give you high operational costs.
And how do you think we could influence in the School of Architectures to change the focus in the designing process only and include the FM and building operation from the very beginning in the design? Because I think it's a key driver for the future, and I don't know exactly how to influence in the architects and the School of Architectures. What do you think?
I think it would be a good idea to if it's not part of the architectural educations, I guess there are differences around, but that they actually also focus on the function and the use of the buildings and those activities taking place there, and also in choice of materials, because choice of materials can have a huge impact on for instance, operational costs and how much they need in maintenance.
Okay. Thank you. We'll come back anyway. Our next guest is Anu Karnoven. Thank you for coming, and especially because your fellow VP Stout has failed in the last minute, and you have to make her presentation. So thank you. Double thank you for you. She is civil engineering and one of the managers of the research and development at real estate education in Finland. And you are running in your institution Erasmus Plus projects here towards sustainable and energy efficient real estate education. and your poster, I think, is about this topic. So please, is this one?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So I will tell very shortly about the survey and our project, because I don't know so much about it. But we started last year, and there's partners from Finland, Netherlands, Germany, Slovakia and Estonia. So different European countries. And we have already done this survey where we tried to find what kind of education concerning sustainability and energy efficient we need. And we have already learned that there is quite big change and differences between these countries. In Finland, training needs to be concerning about the indoor environment. Indoor environment was one of the main results in Finland, but not in other countries. So there is quite different fields of they are changing every country, and we are still analyzing what is behind those results, because we haven't yet analyzed all the questionnaire results. But I think next week or in 2 weeks we will have next meeting, and then we know more about this. It might be the one reason might be that every country sent the questionnaire to the professionals, and then they have to choose only 3 choices. So that's the reason that which one is more important. I think that's one of the results of this questionnaire. I don't know if you can see, but there is those results in that poster, but they are quite small ones, so I hope that everybody can read and make their own analysis about the results. And I hope that Virpi will be tomorrow here. If you want to discuss more, she will be here and you can ask about the results, and I hope that we can get also your analysis what might be behind the questionnaire.
Thank you, Anu. For me, it's clear that education is the key for sustainable facility management in next generation. But how do you think we could improve awareness in the facility management industry and in the users of the buildings from the sustainable point of view? Do you for me?
I think we need education to everyone, from the kids, all the school levels, and then the professionals. We have to discuss, and also I think the clients the owners are the main thing also. After that, the facility managers can discuss about the situation, and then we can all go to the same direction. But I think that we will need education in every level, from the kids to school and university, and also we can't forget, of course, the professionals, the facility managers. Their key point is that they have to do it. The owners say what they want, but they don't know how.
I think that it's a global task to make people aware about sustainable use of energy, material, and so on. But I think that facility managers are especially important in this role, make people aware and users aware about a good usage of buildings and materials, and
they need a lot of knowledge about the facility management and how all the materials works, and how to renovate, how the energy efficient, how the indoor climate goes. They have to know quite a lot in different kind of fields. And of course the legislation is also very important, because there is going a lot.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back to you in some minutes. And our last speaker, Carmel, PhD on Innovation and Facility Management and Associate Professor at NTNU University. And your paper deepened into existing gap between energy modeling in design and real energy performance during the operation. Could you tell your poster? Should be great.
Yeah, okay. I think my poster quite complements some of the things Knut was saying, because the main thing that I'm looking at is at the energy performance gap and the specific story I'm telling is related to a deep renovation of a care home. And in this, they had a real big objective to reduce energy demand in the care home by at least 50%. So that was one of their main goals. But also one of the goals was to make it a functional care home for all the staff and users within it. So in my paper I present interviews from different practices, architects, engineers, facility managers, and I also include the building owner and users of the care home, primarily staff. So in the paper I try to give this, I try to argue that there are different utopian visions of what is an energy efficient building, coming from different practices, and they don't always align perfectly. And I give the example of within the project context of an architect, and and I tell the story of how the architect wishes to reduce one of the energy, change one of the energy solutions which wouldn't make it optimal for reaching the target, but it impacts on the architectural value and the aesthetics. And the architect, being involved in the project, is able to kind of get his viewpoint across and negotiate that it's important to kind of have this balance and compromise between architect and energy efficient solutions. And then I also try to give the perspective of a contractor who feels who's very enthusiastic about doing an energy efficient building, but is very limited because of the very project phased approach. It's very time oriented, so he ends up kind of not being, it gets frustrated because he would like to be more innovative with the solutions he's introducing, but the definitive phase approach within projects kind of goes against the idea of sustainability and being a holistic vision, because he doesn't get that holistic picture. And at the time when I was talking to him, the renovation was complete and he didn't know how the users were using the building. So this is one of the frustrations he was having. Then I spoke to the facility managers to get their viewpoint. And when the building went into operation, some of the solutions didn't work. It didn't meet the functionality of the building. And their feeling was that they kind of lost sight of the goal within the project of that this has to be a functional building, and it has to be a building that the users can use. but some of the energy solutions went too far, and the building turned out to be quite more technical than it necessarily needed to be. But also, they kind of felt they also didn't understand why some of the solutions were introduced. So some of the solutions had very valid reasons for being introduced, but because they're not involved, they don't have that knowledge and understanding of why these solutions are being introduced, and they immediately are operating the building, but also going through in parallel a learning process. So I kind of think rather than have this dystopia that happens in the initial months of operation, where there is the construction is almost going on, still going on in the operation phase to fix defects, maybe having a bit more integration with facility managers and having them involved in the project process will get this knowledge and understanding of how the building is used, but while also making the building energy efficient and meeting the goals. So this will kind of work more in line with the vision of what is sustainability and being more holistic and integrated with other practices. So, yeah.
Thank you. It's really interesting. And once more, I think facility management education is key to save energy and to approach the real performance of the energy of the buildings to the modeling previous developed. And it's key through the energy management, and especially with the awareness of the users of the building, because probably the most important gap among modeling and real energy performance comes from the users' usage of the buildings. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. There needs to be that understanding that the users have this impact and their behavior has an impact on energy. And I think there is that understanding in the project, but sometimes the contractors or architects thinks the user is adaptable. And that's not necessarily the case, because behavior is very difficult to change. And also, when you think about the core business of if you're asking someone to change the behavior, you're indirectly affecting the core business of an organization. And as Knut was saying, the project is for the short term, and the operation is for the long term. And the core business ideas need to come into the project aspects, not just that this is a project about energy efficiency, but it has to come in with the overall picture of what the organization is about.
Well, thank you. Well, we are going to debate now something, and I encourage to the audience to give some question, opinions, thoughts about all these topics. We have just one question only. So the question comes from Susan. Do we give the sufficient skills to sustainability in real estate and facility management today? Or is there in your country that huge need for more and different education? What do you think? For instance, Anu?
Yes and no. You can have the knowledge or that kind of education when you are studying, but you can easily live without it also. So it's still it's part of the education, but if you not choose that one, you might be outside of the knowledge.
Okay.
It should be more that you have to have more knowledge, but still isn't so.
Any more comments? Not?
As far as I can see, it seems to me that if you look at sustainability, energy efficiency in buildings is fairly well taken care of because of the legislation and technical requirements for new buildings. But if you look at sustainability concerning people, workplaces, that is less taken care of and should be more emphasized in the educations, especially in for instance further educations. Because that influences actually more people, even if energy efficiency in building influence all of us, but that's also the case for the people using buildings.
Any more comments?
Can you just repeat the question? I'm sorry. I was just
The question, do we give the sufficient skills to sustainability in real estate and facility management today? Or is there in your country that you need for more and different education?
I think, I think because sustainability is always developing, like the new technologies and new legislation, I think Norway is quite good at and the facility managers in Norway are quite good at being aware of these aspects. But I agree with Knut, there isn't enough legislation within the operational phase to act as a guide of what needs to be done. So in some ways, it's what's happening is more kind of grassroots kind of understanding, and building on initiatives.
Okay. A question for another question. Do you want to add something?
To add, I will believe in Switzerland it's the same as in other countries, and there are a lot of sustainability certification systems now in place, but they stop when it's about operations. So there's definitely need to be a bit more education, so improve on that side.
Okay. Another question for you. How do you visualize the implementation of Internet of Things and big data and the exchange of data among buildings and neighborhoods in order to improve building operation, energy efficiency, sustainability in the next smart cities?
That's a big question. Well, definitely it's not an utopia, so it's happening, and we have to deal with it now to change our ways of working and our behavior. After all, the Internet of Things is about adding sensors to everything in our cities, and afterwards connecting these sensors via internet with the help of protocols of communications and so forth. And definitely it will add a lot of value for facility managers and real estate professionals by helping them in very precisely monitoring and the tracking the environmental footprint and all that. So yes, smart cities are on the way. So it's been also discussed about GeoBeam now from BEAM. So how to connect all the BEAM models and have a common data environment for cities that would definitely improve the way the people live and the neighborhoods. So
I think this exchange of data is a key driver for the future energy efficiency, for instance,
yes,
and for sustainability. We have just read an PhD thesis some months ago, and she demonstrated that you can save among 13 and 50% only exchanging information, nothing more. Existing buildings, if they exchange key information, not the whole information, key information, you can save up to 13-15%. So I think that for sure will be one of the most interesting research areas for the near future. I don't know if somebody want to add something?
Yeah, I think it's really like the big data and the real-time information. It's really exciting. Like I've done some research in big data, and I was kind of curious about your work as well in terms of like, because it's very fast and high volume, and there isn't really a check of accuracy of how good the data is. Are those kind of challenges that you see within your own work? Or
challenges,
but also the
yes.
data is a bit overwhelming as well.
Yes, I perfectly agree. Recently we have been working on a use case in the plant room of our building to connect the sensor data with the beam model, which was created via laser scanning technique, to a CIFMERS system and to mixed realities. So by using HoloLens to really see in place the consumption and the live streaming of data. So we didn't got yet to that point, but I think this will be the next step. The challenge, as you mentioned.
Okay, and another question for you. Don't you think that sometimes we fail in the energy approach in existing buildings? Because we try to save as much energy as possible, but at what cost? Because perhaps the focus should be more centered in the cost-effective operation and cost-effective retrofitting measures. What do you think? Because sometimes I think we are thinking in the wrong way.
It's a tough question. And I think it's good to kind of not just think in one way anyway, because if you focus on energy efficiency alone, and as seen from the work I was doing, you're leaving out loads of other variables which also impact the organization. So I think looking at the cost effectiveness of energy efficiency systems is important for energy management. But I think there are so many variables as well, and I think there is it's that learning process needs to happen as well. That is how to kind of really make the most of the systems that are being introduced in a cost-effective way, and which also benefits the organization as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any more comments?
I have one.
Yep,
Yeah.
please.
Concerning Internet of Things, that gives us a lot of opportunities. For instance, you can have heating, ventilation, air condition, and services on demand. But on the other hand, it also presents some quite substantial problems concerning privacy. And that has to be solved, otherwise we will have an Orwellian society where sensors anywhere, which can become quite nasty.
It's interesting, Anu.
Yeah, it was almost the same thing, and that needs a lot of education and a lot of knowledge concerning about the facility management. You have to know a lot. You have to know all about the digitalization and all the energy efficient and sustainable and materials, and how the whole building is working, how all the techniques are working, and so
it's very wide area.
Yeah, it's very wide.
Yeah. Changing, because we are finished in the 5 minutes. Some comment about how we could improve the relationship into the EFM community and take advantage from synergy among the participation of researchers, educators, professionals, industry, because I'm not sure if we are doing the correct things to take advantage from this synergy. What do you think?
I think we have some opportunities, but also some challenges. The first challenge concerning research is that facility management is not considered an important subject by the research funding agencies. You see it in EU in Horizon 2020, and you see it, for instance, in Norway in the Norwegian Research Council. We managed to fund the Oscar project by luck, because it was a user-driven innovation project, but not a traditional research project, because the traditional research funding go to things like energy and health and aging. And that's very and competitiveness, and that's also very much part of the Horizon 2020. But the good thing is that actually by combining the forces here through EuroFM, it's possible to make studies, for instance, comparative studies across Europe, which can show decision makers that FM is actually very important. So we probably have to have a stepwise strategy, and to make FM important, to teach people that this partly invisible field is actually affect people's lives. Okay. But we also have a structural problem in the FM industry. It's quite short-term by nature. The suppliers live with short-term contracts, and it's very tough competition among those. And it's difficult to establish research across companies, because it's company secrets, it influences the company's competitiveness, because it's very often cutthroat competition for the big contracts.
Yeah, but don't you think we should try to approach and to work together and to strengthen the relationship? And because it's theoretically it's easy through the EuroFM. Okay, 3 minutes left.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Please.
In NTNU, we're very aware that practices don't necessarily read our brilliant journal articles. So we are trying to think of ways in which to make them much more accessible. But using the EuroFM as an outlet, maybe we could start to try and develop some sort of very kind of key findings, one-page things to show the many industries and practices that are involved in EuroFM, the kind of work that we are doing, rather than kind of give them like, oh, you should read this article. It's very interesting. Just give it in the format that is something that they would like to at least digest, and if they want to read more, they can then afterwards read the article.
Okay. One bullet point as conclusions from everyone. Just one. One bullet point. One idea. Not? As conclusion of this roundtable.
Yeah, I think FM is a very important field, but we have to make it important even for people outside the community, and to make the others realize the implications.
No?
We had in January our annual conference of building owners and clients, and in there we had this research paper section, and there was young doctoral students or different kind of students. They were telling about the research, and we learned that it was very interesting, and all the participants were very anxious to hear what is going on in the research sector, and I think that was very, very nice.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, very shortly, I believe it's very important to be innovative and to think forward, to push the boundaries of our industry.
Carmen?
Yeah, like I think the discussion was indicating that we are kind of thinking across the life cycle, and I think like facility managers are like not just looking internally at the discipline, but they are reaching out as well to other disciplines.
Okay. A last idea from my point, to promote the relationship and to push to work together and take advantage from synergies through EURFM, and encourage all the attendees to use the collaborative work to exchange experiences, ideas, and to open new ways of collaboration. It has been a pleasure to share with you this roundtable, and thank you so much for waiting patiently with us. Thank you so much. Matthew?